There is a question that follows you. It lingers behind your footsteps like a shadow that refuses to fall away. You don't speak it out loud, but it breathes beneath every ambition, every failure, every night you cannot sleep. It is small. It is quiet. It is merciless. What is any of this for? You feel it sometimes when you wake before the alarm. That thin moment between sleep and consciousness where you sense something missing, even if nothing is wrong. A strange hollowness, a soft ache, like a room you remember but cannot enter, like a name you once knew but can no longer pronounce. You rise, you move, you play the role you have learned. You do the things you believe you must do, and yet, somewhere underneath the rhythm of your days, the question persists. What is the point? Why does any of this matter? You do not want to ask it. You try not to ask it. But it asks you. It whispers while you stand at the mirror, brushing your teeth in a bathroom lit by the same tired bulb. It murmurs as you stare at your phone, scrolling past lives that seem louder, brighter, more certain than your own. It presses against your ribs when you're alone, when the distractions fall away, when the noise becomes soft enough for you to hear your own heartbeat, and the heartbeat says nothing. It only beats, and beats, and beats, like a clock that never explains the hour. You look at your life, its routines, its rituals, its hopes, and somewhere deep inside, you wonder if you're building something real, or if you're simply keeping yourself from falling apart. You wonder whether meaning is something you discover, or something you invent to survive the emptiness between breaths. You wonder if your life is drifting, not forward, but merely along. You've grown older. You've learned things. You've watched people rise, fall, disappear, but the question never ages. It never becomes less sharp. You've seen enough to know that nothing you hold will last. People leave. Dreams fade. Bodies weaken. Time erodes every certainty you cling to. So what, then, is the meaning of a life made of sand? You try to reassure yourself. You tell yourself that everyone feels this way, that there must be a purpose, a path, a design, even if you cannot see it clearly. You try to believe that all this striving leads somewhere, that all this effort amounts to something more than a temporary arrangement of dust and breath. And yet, the question remains. Why? Why do you want what you want? Why do you fear what you fear? Why do you run, even when you cannot name what you're running from? There are moments when the truth presses against your skin like cold air. Moments when you realize how fragile everything is. How today becomes yesterday in a single blink. How memories slip away while you're busy trying to create them. How even joy dissolves the moment you reach for it. You stand in the middle of your life, holding pieces of something you cannot describe. Something that feels both profound and painfully empty. Something that feels like longing, not for more, but for meaning. You think about the people you've loved, the laughter you've shared, the promises that once felt eternal. Where are they now? Where is the glow of those nights? Where is the warmth of those mornings? Gone, softened by time, folded into silence. And you begin to see it. Your life is not a monument. It is a breath, a flicker, a ripple on the surface of the water, here for a moment, gone before you can touch the bottom. The vanity of life does not shout, it does not rage. It slips in quietly, like dusk entering an empty field, a dimming of certainty, a slow unveiling of the inevitable truth, that everything you cling to is temporary, that everything you build will crumble, that everything you chase will fade, that everything you love will one day return to silence. And still you keep going. Why? Why do you wake up and step into the same routines? Why do you fight for dreams that may never arrive? Why do you seek connection in a world where even the deepest bonds can be broken? Is it hope? Is it denial? Is it courage? Is it fear? You don't know. Not yet. You only feel something calling you forward. Something that pulls you into the next day, and the next, and the next after that. It's not ambition. Not really. It is something quieter. A faint tug at the edge of your soul. A whisper beneath the noise. An instinct older than your name. A longing to understand what this all means. A longing to know whether there is something beneath the surface, something deeper than desire, something beyond achievement, something that remains after everything else falls away. You feel it most when life stands still, when the world stops pressing against you for a moment, when the mask slips and you glimpse yourself without the story you cling to. You see your reflection in the window, not your face, but the flicker of being behind it. A presence without a title, a life without a script. And the question returns. What is the meaning of a life that disappears? What do you do with the knowledge that everything ends? How do you live, knowing the world will forget you? These are not questions for the mind. They are questions for the soul, though your soul is not always ready to answer, because answers come with cost. To discover meaning, you must first confront emptiness. To understand reality, you must first let go of illusion. To find stillness, you must first pass through silence. And silence is terrifying, because silence has no promises, no guarantees, no consolations. Silence reveals what you are without the noise. Just breath, just awareness, just the raw trembling of existence before it becomes a story. You fear that silence, and yet you hunger for it, because you know somewhere deep inside that the noise cannot save you, that pleasures cannot fill the void, that achievements cannot erase the impermanence of your days, that the world cannot give you what you secretly crave, a meaning that does not decay, a purpose that does not vanish, a truth that does not break. So here you are, standing at the threshold of an inner doorway, one you've tried to ignore, one you've walked past countless times, one you've pretended not to see, but it is open now. Or perhaps you are finally looking. The question is no longer behind you, it stands before you. What is a life worth in a world where nothing lasts? The air grows still, your heartbeat slows, the walls of your mind soften. A hush falls over the noise of your thoughts. You do not know the answer, and that is why you must walk forward. Because meaning is not found by those who seek certainty. Meaning reveals itself to those who dare to look at the world and not turn away. You take a breath, it echoes inside you like a quiet bell in a vast cathedral. And with that breath, the journey begins. Not outward, inward, into the cycle you have lived without noticing, into the illusions you have mistaken for truth, into the rhythms that shape your days without your consent, into the storm of wanting, fearing, craving, avoiding, into the ancient patterns of a world built on impermanence. You walk into the next question, whispered like a thread of wind through the silence. If everything fades, why do we hold on? And in the distance, somewhere between memory and awakening, the answer begins to stir. You begin to see the pattern not by studying the world, but by feeling its weight. The shape of the cycle reveals itself slowly, the way a sunrise reveals a landscape not with a sudden burst, but with a gradual unveiling. Each layer of light uncovering a truth you did not know you were ready to face. It begins with wanting, not loud wanting, not dramatic wanting, but quiet, wanting, the kind that hums beneath your skin like a low electrical current, the kind that pushes you forwards before you have even decided to move. You want something, you don't always know what it is. A feeling, perhaps, a sense of arrival, a moment of relief. You chase it in the shape of goals, possessions, achievements, recognition. You chase it in the eyes of others, in the promises of the future, in the fantasies you build to survive the present. You call it meaning, you call it purpose, but at its core, it is hunger. A hunger that does not speak, a hunger that does not ask permission, a hunger that wears many masks but always whispers the same silent plea: more comfort, more safety, more love, more certainty, more control over the chaos of existence. You think you want freedom, but look closely. You don't want freedom, you want control. Control disguised as freedom. Control dressed as choice. Control wrapped in the language of ambition and progress and self-actualization. You thought freedom was the absence of limits, but what you wanted was the absence of discomfort. You thought you wanted success, but what you wanted was to silence the fear that you would never be enough. You thought you wanted love, but what you wanted was someone to rescue you from the lonely echo of your own uncertainty. You thought you wanted happiness, but what you wanted was relief. Relief from the ache. Relief from the doubt. Relief from the sinking feeling that life is slipping through your fingers, grain by grain, moment by moment, breath by breath. You chase relief the way a thirsty person chases water, yet every sip makes you thirstier still. This is the beginning of the cycle. Desire, pursuit, attainment, emptiness, desire again. Round and round, year after year, life after life. You reach for something, believing that once you hold it, the ache will soften. But the moment you grasp it, the moment it becomes yours, it begins to decay. Its novelty fades, its promise dimming like a candle drifting into the distance. You are left with a quiet disappointment, not sharp enough to break you, but soft enough to haunt you. And so you reach again, because you believe the problem was the object, not the hunger. You believe the issue was what you chose, not the chooser. You believe the failure was the world, not the way you cling to it. This is how the cycle sustains itself. You chase, you catch, you collapse, you chase again. You call this living, but it is running. A running that never ends. A running that never arrives. A running that leaves you breathless in a race you never agreed to join. And the strangest part? You think this is normal. You think this is how life must be. You think this is how meaning is found. You think this is what it means to be a human being in a world that is always moving. But look closer. Feel deeper. Listen honestly. There is a stitch of hollowness beneath your joy, a thread of fear beneath your success, a tinge of sorrow beneath your victories. Because something inside you knows, you are not chasing life, you are fleeing emptiness. You are not running toward meaning, you are running from silence. You are not building a future, you are filling a void. You do not seek the light because it is beautiful. You seek the light because the darkness inside you frightens you. This is the hidden truth beneath the cycle. We do not pursue what we desire. We pursue what allows us to avoid confronting ourselves. You drink ambition not to taste success, but to drown uncertainty. You chase relationships not to embrace love, but to escape loneliness. You fill your days with noise not because you enjoy it, but because silence forces you to listen to the questions you cannot answer. The world tells you to move, to grow, to achieve, to seek the next horizon. And you obey, not because you are bold, but because you are afraid of staying still. Stillness exposes you. Stillness strips you. Stillness reveals that beneath your accomplishments, beneath your roles, beneath your personality, something else waits. Something you do not understand. Something you cannot predict or control. Stillness confronts you with the truth that everything you cling to is temporary and everything you fear is inevitable. And so you run, and so you chase. And so you climb the ladder of a life built on impermanence. You think the world is competing with you, but the world is not competing with you. You are competing with your own reflection. You think your failures are external, but your failures are internal patterns, repeating themselves in different forms. Like a script written long before you were born. You think your destiny is shaped by the choices you make, but your choices are shaped by the fears you refuse to confront. This is why the cycle feels unbreakable, because you believe you are choosing, but you are reacting. Reacting to longing, reacting to insecurity, reacting to the invisible wounds the world never taught you to name. Look at your life from a distance. Think of every desire you have ever had. Every dream, every pursuit, every longing that has moved you, how many of them were born from true inner calling? And how many were born from the fear of being worthless, being forgotten, being alone, being unloved, being temporary? How many things have you chased simply because you were told they mattered? How many identities have you worn because you feared what would be left if you removed them? How many times have you mistaken exhaustion for purpose? Busyness for meaning, momentum for direction. You run because the world runs. You chase because the world chases. You hunger because the world hungers. A mirror reflecting a mirror reflecting a mirror. A cycle feeding itself. A dream dreaming itself. There is nothing wrong with wanting. Wanting is human. Wanting is ancient. Wanting is the pulse of consciousness, expanding, reaching, stretching into form. But wanting becomes suffering when you believe it can save you. Desire promise freedom, but each promise becomes a chain. A golden one, perhaps, but still a chain. You work for years to buy something you believe will complete you. But once it is yours, you feel the same. The wanting returns, wearing a different disguise. You thought the new job would end the anxiety. It didn't. It simply shifted the shape of your worries. You thought the relationship would calm your loneliness. It didn't. It simply replaced one ache with another. You thought success would silence the voice of inadequacy. But success only amplifies it, because now you fear losing what you have gained. You thought achievement would give you rest, but achievement makes you restless. You thought possessions would make you feel secure, but the more you own, the more you must defend. You thought understanding the world would give you peace, but understanding only deepens the mystery. You thought living would feel like progress, but living often feels like repetition. This is the cycle. This is the wheel. This is the ancient rhythm of all who seek permanence in a world made of disappearing things. It does not matter how much you achieve. It fades. It does not matter how deeply you love. It fades. It does not matter how hard you try. It fades. And yet you continue, because fading is terrifying. Because the idea that all your efforts, your memories, your stories, your struggles, your joys, that all of it could vanish feels unbearable. So you build your life like a tower meant to withstand time, ignoring the simple truth that time is undefeated. Everything ends. Everything. Even the stars. Even the mountains. Even the memories you hold as sacred. Even the person you believe yourself to be. There is no permanence here, no object immune to decay, no moment protected from the erosion of tomorrow. And still you chase, because you believe that meaning is something you create against the grain of impermanence. That purpose is something you build before the dust claims you again. That life is a race against the inevitable. But what if it isn't? What if the cycle is not a mistake? What if the point of life is not to escape impermanence, but to see through the illusion that permanence was ever possible? What if the hunger you feel is not a flaw, but a whisper pointing you toward the truth that nothing you cling to can define you, nothing you pursue can complete you, nothing you fear can diminish you? What if the ache inside you is not a wound, but an invitation to look deeper, to see beyond the chase, to step off the wheel, to witness the cycle instead of repeating it? An invitation to understand the simple, devastating, liberating truth. You were never searching for meaning. You were searching for yourself, and you cannot find yourself in things that fade. Not in success, not in love, not in praise, not in identity, not in achievement, not even in time. You begin to sense it now faintly, like the first tremor of dawn. Meaning is not hidden in the world. Meaning is hidden in awareness. Meaning is not something you capture. Meaning is something you notice. Meaning is not the climax of the chase. Meaning is the stillness beneath the chase. Meaning is not what you achieve. Meaning is what remains when achievement dissolves. Meaning is not a treasure you acquire. Meaning is the quiet shift that occurs when you realize you were never lacking. Meaning is not found in what lasts. Meaning is found in what is. And this is where the cycle begins to fracture. Not through effort, not through struggle, not through resistance, but through seeing. You begin to see the pattern as it is. A loop, a rhythm, a tide that rises and falls. And in seeing it, truly seeing it, something inside you loosens. Not breaks, loosens. Something softens. A knot you didn't know was tied begins to unravel. You breathe. For the first time in a long time, you breathe without reaching. You breathe without craving, without grasping, without negotiating with the future. A quiet realization comes over you. You thought you were living. You were only running. Running from impermanence. Running from silence. Running from the truth that life cannot be held. But now something shifts. Because now you are beginning to see the cycle for what it is. Not a trap. A mirror. A mirror reflecting the restless hunger of the human heart. A mirror revealing how deeply you resist the transient nature of existence. A mirror showing you how desperately you want something, anything, to last. And yet the more you try to hold life, the faster it slips away. The more you cling, the more you lose. The more you chase, the further meaning retreats. But the moment you stop, truly stop, the truth begins to appear. A truth that is not spoken in words, but felt in the stillness between them. You begin to understand that meaning is not the opposite of vanity. Meaning rises from vanity the way a flower rises from soil that once seemed barren. Meaning is not threatened by impermanence. Meaning is revealed by impermanence. Meaning is not destroyed by fading. Meaning is illuminated by fading. Meaning is not born from permanence. Meaning is born from awareness of impermanence. The cycle does not bind you. It teaches you. It teaches you that everything changes. It teaches you that nothing can be kept. It teaches you that clinging creates suffering. It teaches you that release creates peace. It teaches you that true meaning is not found in what you gain or even in what you lose. Meaning is found in what remains when you stop running. And you are not there yet, but you are beginning. The shift has begun. The cycle is cracking. The old rhythm is weakening. You feel the faintest tremor of silence beneath your steps, and that silence calls you forward, into the next unraveling, into the next dissolution, into the descent, not downward, but inward, where truth waits not as a conclusion, but as a presence, not as an answer, but as awareness. There comes a moment subtle, almost imperceptible, when you begin noticing the machinery behind your own thoughts. You watch yourself, wanting, fearing, longing, resisting. You watch how a single desire can shape an entire day, how a single fear can shape an entire life. You begin to see how the world pulls you, pushes you, molds you into shapes that do not belong to you. Not because the world is cruel, but because you agreed to the molding without realizing you had agreed. You were conditioned long before you were conscious, conditioned to chase praise, conditioned to avoid disappointment, conditioned to fear rejection, conditioned to seek approval, conditioned to measure your worth in outcomes instead of awareness. And so you grew into someone who confuses fulfillment with achievement, peace with productivity, value with performance. You grew into someone who cannot rest without guilt, who cannot slow down without feeling left behind, who cannot sit in silence without feeling something is wrong. You grew into someone who thinks life is a ladder to climb, not a moment to experience. But now, as the cycle reveals its rhythm, you begin to see the absurdity of it all. You see how you were taught to build your life like a monument, when in truth, life is a river. A river cannot be controlled. A river cannot be frozen. A river cannot be owned. It moves whether you cling or release. You stand at the edge of your own mind, and you see it clearly. You have spent years trying to carve permanence into a world made of passing storms. You've built dreams like fortresses, forgetting that even stone dissolves in the hands of time. You've clung to memories like lifeboats, forgetting that memory is only a story the mind tells itself. You've tried to make moments last, forgetting that moments are beautiful precisely because they do not. You are beginning to understand the vanity of life is not a curse. It is a mirror, a revelation, an invitation to see what matters beyond the temporary. And in this realization, another truth arises. You are not suffering because things change. You are suffering because you insist they shouldn't. You create your own heartbreak by demanding permanence from what was never meant to stay. You want love to be eternal. You want happiness to be constant. You want youth to be unending. You want life to be predictable. You want meaning to be guaranteed. But nothing in nature behaves this way. Waves collapse. Leaves fall. Stars burn out. Mountains erode. Galaxies collide. Civilizations rise and dissolve. Lives unfold and close like echoing breaths. Everything dances, appears, disappears, returns in another form. Why then should your life be exempt? You stand inside a world that is continuously becoming, continuously unfolding, continuously letting go. And you have been resisting the flow, clinging to the riverbank, afraid that surrender means drowning. But surrender does not mean drowning. Surrender means learning how to float. You realize something else now, something even deeper, even more unsettling. You don't actually want the things you chase. You want the feeling you think they will give you. You want the security you imagine success will bring. You want the warmth you imagine love will sustain. You want the peace you imagine achievement will unlock. You want the identity you imagine praise will confirm. But none of these feelings come from the objects themselves. They come from you. The objects were always mirrors, reflecting back the belief you temporarily placed inside them. You gave them power. You gave them meaning. You gave them the weight to determine your worth. When the job did not satisfy you, it wasn't the job. It was the expectation. When the relationship did not complete you, it wasn't the partner. It was the illusion. When success did not quiet the inner trembling, it wasn't the achievement. It was the hunger beneath it, a hunger that no external accomplishment could ever soothe. And for the first time, you see the pattern with painful clarity. You have been living in pursuit of reflections instead of reality, shadows instead of substance, echoes instead of presence, dreams instead of awareness. You chase what you think will fill you, but you cannot be filled with what is inherently empty. You cannot be completed by what is temporary. You cannot be secured by what is fragile. You cannot be made whole by what is always changing. You feel a tightening in your chest as this truth sinks deeper. And beneath that tightening, you sense the beginning of release. Because something in you recognizes the freedom in letting go of illusions that were never yours to carry. You look around at your life, not with judgment, but with a quiet, solemn honesty. You see how many things you pursued, not because you truly wanted them, but because you believed they would give you an identity, a direction, a sense of being someone in a world that constantly tells you to become something. You see how many choices you made from fear. Fear of being ordinary, fear of being forgotten, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being alone, fear of being nobody. But what is nobody? Strip away the roles you perform. Strip away the stories you tell. Strip away the past you cling to. Strip away the expectations you chase. Strip away the hopes you fear losing. What remains? Not emptiness, awareness, not absence, presence, not a void, a space that cannot be taken, a space that cannot be broken, a space that cannot be diminished by the loss of anything external. This is the beginning of awakening. Not in fireworks, not in revelation, not in epiphany, but in quiet noticing the difference between what changes and what observes change, noticing the difference between what fades and what sees the fading, noticing the difference between the story of your life and the awareness in which the story unfolds. The cycle begins dissolving not because you destroy it, but because you stop mistaking it for truth. You are no longer pulled by every desire. You are no longer terrified by every fear. You are no longer seduced by every promise. You are no longer imprisoned by every loss. Because you see it now. Life does not owe you permanence. And you do not owe life your struggle against impermanence. You can breathe. You can soften. You can release the grip you didn't know was tightening around your heart. But just as you begin to relax into this understanding, the cycle reveals another layer, a deeper pattern beneath desire and pursuit. It is the fear of insignificance. You don't merely want meaning. You want to matter to someone, to matter to something, to matter in a way that time cannot erase. You build your life like a monument because you want the world to leave an imprint of you on its surface. But the world does not work that way. Time does not remember. Time allows. It allows moments to come, moments to dissolve, moments to transform into new moments. Nothing stays. Nothing returns unchanged. Nothing resists the tide. This realization frightens you, but also liberates you. Because if life is not a monument, then you do not have to be a sculpture. You can be a wave. You can be a breeze. You can be a flickering candle that does not apologize for its impermanence. Because meaning is not earned by duration. Meaning is revealed by presence. A moment of pure awareness is worth more than a lifetime of unconscious striving. A brief breath of clarity is more sacred than years lost in repetition. A single instant of stillness is more real than decades spent chasing echoes. And so the cycle deepens. You begin to see how all your efforts to solidify your existence were attempts to protect you from the truth that nothing you cling to can define you. You are not the things you gather. You are not the achievements you list. You are not the identities you wear. You are not the relationships you hold. You are not the roles you perform. You are not the fears you obey. You are not the past you remember. You are not the dreams you chase. You are the awareness in which all of it comes and goes. And for the first time, the vanity of life begins to feel beautiful. Not bleak, not hollow, not nihilistic. Beautiful. Because if nothing lasts, then everything is precious. Because if everything fades, then everything matters in the moment it appears. Because if time takes everything away, then every breath is a gift. Because if you cannot hold anything, then you are free to experience everything. This is the shift that begins to tremble at the edges of your understanding, the way thunder shivers before it speaks. You sense it, but cannot yet name it. Meaning is not found in permanence. Meaning is found in presence. Meaning is not found in achievement. Meaning is found in awareness. Meaning is not found in conquering life. Meaning is found in seeing life as it is. And yet, there is still one more layer to the cycle, one more illusion that binds you, one more pattern that must be revealed before you can step into the descent. It is this. You think you are separate from the world you observe. You think you stand apart from the flow. You think you are a lone figure walking through an indifferent universe. You think meaning is something you extract from life, not something you share with it. But look deeper. Everything affects everything. But before you descend, before you sink into the deeper waters, before you let the narrative of your life soften into silence, another question rises to the surface, trembling like a candle flame caught between wind and darkness. If nothing lasts, why does the heart still hope? You let that question hang inside you. You do not answer. You do not analyze. You simply breathe with it, because the answer cannot be found in thought. The answer waits in the descent.